Saskatoon's Senator Sid Buckwold Bridge is seeing the end of its completion after 2 years, the second season now with the bridge closure. We've invited Rob Frank of the City of Saskatoon to come with us today, the engineering manager of asset preservation for the city. Rob, thanks for taking some time out of this schedule to come and shed some light on this project.
Well, thanks for having me, Randy. I'm glad to share some information about the project with you.
Let's start with how this project came to be. It's a massive undertaking. Seen it over 2019 and again starting in 2020. How did it happen, and how has it gone in 2020?
First of all, let's start with your first question. How did it happen? We have an annual bridge deck testing program that helps us determine the condition of all of our bridges and overpasses and pedestrian walkways around the city annually. And we have every bridge on a 6-year cycle, so we're continually getting consultant reports on the condition of our bridges and when the best time is to rehab. And Senator Sid Buckwold Bridge in particular was coming due for rehabilitation. It's not a pure proactive rehabilitation. We needed to dig into a little bit deeper into some of the items. We needed some pier strengthening. We had low concrete cover on the bridge deck, which can induce corrosion. So we knew we needed to get in there sooner than later before we started seeing some significant damage to the bridge, and we really drove that price up. So we've had this project on the books for probably the last 7 years, like leading up to this time. One of the things that we did to make it even better, it probably made the project last a tiny bit longer, but we added in the First Avenue and 19th and Idlewild overpasses over 19th Street. Those are both proactive repairs, which needed much less concrete repair than the Sid Buckwold itself, but it just made a lot of sense to add them so that we weren't coming back in the next 2 years to do another one, and maybe in the next 7 years to do the next one. We're just trying to coordinate those projects so that we can have the least disruption to the citizens of Saskatoon, allow them to travel around in the most effective way, have a 1-2 year construction period rather than multiple year construction periods. So it just made a lot of sense.
Right. It's a tough decision in that capacity that you're trying to manage businesses that need to stay open, people that need to move around. I suppose one glimmer of hope was the COVID-19 pandemic that slowed everybody down, but still allowed the bridge to go ahead. The bridge itself opened in the mid-1960s, and did it have a volume of cars then as opposed to today? What would it see typically, and is it designed to hold?
Well, for design-wise, it would be truck traffic that would have the major impact for that, for loading. But as far as vehicle traffic per day, currently we're seeing around 41,700 vehicles per day on average is what our counts are showing. So it is a very busy bridge. It's a busy roadway. I'm not entirely sure what the traffic volumes would have been back in 1966 when the bridge opened, but it would have definitely been a lot smaller than today.
Right. If you look at what the city has done in terms of trying to make the project come together and deliver on time and on budget, was there anything that the contractor had to do in terms of renting sites, or are there any performance bonuses, if you will, if they come in ahead, or they've had good weather this summer, obviously?
Yeah, so whenever we're doing bridge projects, we are very aggressive on site rental. We have a high site rental rate, which can either allow the contractor the benefit of a bonus, a bonus, or it can impact them negatively if they're done late. So we typically apply on busy roadways, and most of our bridges and overpasses are all on busy roadways. Otherwise, we would not have a need for one. Uh, but we typically apply a $10,000 a day rate for the contractor. So they have to bid how many days they think it's going to take them, and then they have to try to achieve that schedule. So in this case, the contractor is going to receive some uh, some bonus money for this project for opening it up early to traffic. Um, but in order to do that, a contractor typically has to spend more money to get it done early. So they have to bring in night crews, they have to work longer hours, they have to work weekends, they have to. So they spend more money to get done early. But it's a benefit to the city overall if we can have some sort of a site rental for them to get off the site earlier. So we found it to be quite successful. We did it on. We've been doing it for quite a few years now.
Explain that process then in terms of there have been nights when I've driven through there uh, that there have been crews on the bridge even after midnight. Is there something that the contractor has to do in terms of noise and things of that nature? Would there be an exemption for that particular project?
Absolutely, we don't. I mean, we don't allow contractors to violate the noise bylaw. A lot of times, bridge pours, like concrete pours, are best at night. The temperatures are better at night. They're not real loud doing a bridge pour. You might hear some backup beepers from the concrete truck or something like that. But something like jackhammering out concrete or something would not be allowed. We're very clear in the contract language that they can't exceed a certain decibel, and uh, what type of noise will allow after within the quiet time.
I think that the city, and your team should be commended in kind of encouraging that longer work period throughout the day and extended into the evening because majority of the population wants this open and done with. So kudos to you and the engineers for getting that work done and those crews that had to sacrifice those holidays and weekends in the name of free flowing traffic. If you're going to look at a bridge rehabilitation like this type of project, are there other projects that we would anticipate in the next little while with Saskatoon's many bridges that we have that are on the horizon?
Yeah, we do have. I don't have that in front of me right at this moment, but we do have a list. We have like a 10-year. We have a 10-year plan. They're not locked in stone. They kind of usually have a range. Um, because leaving it for 1 year or so isn't really going to be detrimental. We can usually move them around a couple of years, and we don't quite have our bridge rehab program isn't fully funded at this time. Um, it's funded quite well. Like council has done a great job of increasing the funding over the last few years. Back back in the day, it was a lot harder to do bridge rehabs. It was more of a whether budget was available for the year, but we actually have base funding, slightly over 3 million, I believe, right now we have, and we're trying to get it up to 5 million of base funding a year so we can do at least one structure a year. Um, I think the next one next year, our next project on the slate for next year would be Circle Drive and 8th Street is the plan.
And your role in terms of looking at all the assets that the city owns and safety is obviously first and foremost. Do you look for federal dollars or gas money that would help fund some of this?
Yeah, we're always looking for additional funding sources. Absolutely, that's one thing that we're continuously doing, and I think the city of Saskatoon is very good at doing that. When funding comes up, we are able to react very quickly because we've got projects in the queue. It still is always better to have base funding. When federal funding does come along, you can still allocate it to the structure, and then you can use that base funding. You can utilize that base funding for another project within the city. So uh, the base funding the base funding is still very important to have because we've got 80 some structures across the city, and you typically you need to do a bridge rehab, at least a proactive bridge rehab every 25 to 35 years. It's very much like changing the shingles in your house. If you can imagine the roadway structure has a waterproofing membrane on it, and then pavement usually above that. In some cases, we have concrete surfaces, but they're thick enough that it takes a long time for the chlorides to get to the rebar. So uh, putting a new roof on your house and keeping the water out of your house is very much similar process to a bridge structure. You can keep them in good condition and keep them operating forever if you continue to repair them and stop the chlorides from rusting the rebar and stuff like that. So um, that's kind of our goal, is to do the rehabs at the cheapest time in their life cycle, and so that you're not spending a lot of money. So you try to do it so you're only changing the shingles and you're not changing the rafters and maybe the drywall or the flooring, or perhaps even knocking your house down in that example. The Victoria Bridge is a prime example of something we don't want to happen. We can keep our bridges in good condition by continually taking care of them, just like you would your house or your car, changing the oil or changing the shingles in your house. So
Rob Frank, our engineering manager of asset preservation for the City of Saskatoon, thank you for the work you've done and your team and the construction crews out there. Looking forward to seeing this bridge open this week. Thanks a lot.
thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me, Randy. And we we apologize to the citizens for any disruption we did to you, but really, in the grand scheme of things, the 2 years that we did this is kind of a short time frame over the life cycle of this bridge, and we don't plan on being here for quite some time. Hopefully, we're not here for at least 25 years and maybe 35 years again. So, thanks for
We'll
having
get
me.
out of the nursing home and drive over it later on. Thank you, Rob. We'll see you
Okay,
again.
take care.
That's our show for today. I'd like to thank Amy Martins of Periton Books, as well as Rob Frank, the engineering manager of asset preservation for the City of Saskatoon. I'm your host, Randy Shabila. We'll see you next time on Connect.